Oh, there we go. Now you should be able to hear something. Sorry.
Hello.
Right,
See,
again?
this is why we do the audio check. Okay, there we go. All right, let's do that again. Okay, now they can hear us. Okay, awesome. Sorry about that.
Oh.
No problem. Andy, do you just want to say something quick and make sure
Hello,
that your level's okay?
I'm Andy Sandham. I was a level designer, artist, and scriptwriter on 4 and 5.
Nice.
And hi, I'm Jerr Carroll. I was an animator, modeler of sorts on 3, 4, 5.
Lots of games. Okay, awesome. Everybody can hear us okay? Yeah? We can go ahead and get started then, I think. All right. So welcome, everyone. This is our first live interview. It is so exciting. We know that in the past, it has taken us forever to get videos edited and out to you, sometimes like a month and a half. So we decided to try live interviews, and we have 2 awesome guests today. So they did just introduce themselves. And Tom Scutt, the AI programmer, he had a last-minute conflict. He might be able to join. He might just randomly join in the middle of this interview. And if he does, we'll just pick up from there. But I do know he provided some answers, and Andy can kind of talk over through some of the answers to the questions. And then we'll, at least have some of his insights regardless. All right, so we have collected some questions from fans online, and we're going to start with those, and then we'll go for additional questions at the end. So Neha's going to be keeping an eye on chat, and if you have any additional questions, then she can remember to ask them at the end. And this will be saved as a VOD, so later, if you're not able to make the whole interview, we will save it, and we will export it and have it transcribed and have subtitles and all of that, so that we'll be able to have more people view it. So thank you all again for watching, and thank you, Jerr and Andy, for being here. Let's get started.
No problem.
All right, so let's start with, how did you get your start at core design, and what TR games did you work at prior to Tomb Raider: The Last Revelation? Let's start with you, Andy.
Which company did I work at prior to core design?
So before there, and then when you started at core.
So I worked at Bullfrog Productions, then at Guildford. So it was a theme park and syndicate, and I was really a concept artist, to be honest with you. And then I kind of started doing a bit of FMV in 3DS, and so I was there for about a year and a half. Went over to core design and met Toby, and we all started using 3DS. And Toby was fascinated with kind of being able to model things in 3D. And so I started with my own game and my own team on Bland Machine Head, which was about a lady being strapped to a nuclear missile. You can make it up. And then we I can't remember what we got drafted onto next, but eventually we moved on to Tomb Raider 3. Where it was a group of about 8 of us, and we just started basically developing the Tomb Raider games for various reasons, from Tomb Raider 2 onwards. Some of the team had worked a little bit on Tomb Raider 2. Awesome.
Okay, and Jerr, how about for you? Where were you working before core, and what were your first Tomb Raider games?
All right, so very quickly, I'm from Ireland. I left art college. I got lucky to get a job at a place called Don Bluth Studios in 2D films, which is like Old Dogs Go to Heaven and Lands Before Time, those old films from aeons ago. And then for some reason I jacked it all in and went back to Waterford, where I'm from, and a small little tiny games company called Emerald Software that did nothing. They were nobody. But they did the Moonwalker game when it first came out on the Amiga back in the day. And then when that was going along, somehow I got dragged over to England to a place called Gremlin Graphics. And I was there. And then from there I went on to went to core. We started working myself and a guy called Jed Keaveney. We're doing some games for core on the side. Some RPG stuff on Amiga called Heimdall. There's a Heimdall 1 and 2 with like a Viking RPG type thing.
Oh, cool.
And then we tried to do our own thing. It didn't work out, so I went back to core again. I was helping out with a game called Ninja when the first Tomb Raider game was coming out. And I was asked whether we want to help out on 2, and I was going, no, I'll stick with Ninja. It's much better.
It's one of my favourite games, Joe.
Silly mistake. Thank you very much. Here's it, £5. So I was doing various games in core on the side, and then I was helping out some of the FMV rendering, from what I remember, I think it's from 3, just little tiny bits here and there. I was helping out the guy called Pete Barnard doing the FMV work. He was doing so much work, I had to get my hand in that. And then I jumped in on 4 and 5, and then just as teams kept on coming and going, I just moved in on there, so started working on Lara stuff.
Very cool.
We used, I mean, you know, we used to make cinematics, obviously. So now, you know, you have in-game cinematics, which are effectively using the in-game models. But so we would have to make full motion video or FMV, which a lot of my students don't understand. When I say FMV, they're like, what?
Yeah.
But yeah, so we had like, you know, we had a team of 8 that were developing the game. And then we had another team of, I think, about 8 doing the FMV, you know, and then we sort of crossed over a bit more as we kind of went on to 4 and 5. But, you know, you had to, because the models were so low poly that you couldn't actually use them for in-game cutscenes, although we did, didn't we, Joe? Yeah.
They were cutting edge, come on. They were cutting edge once.
For the time, of course. Andy, would you mind giving just a little overview of Tom and how he got his start and what he was doing beforehand?
So Tom was a university lecturer, so I think we were looking for an AI programmer, and you know, he kind of loved Tomb Raider, so I think he sent a letter in just basically saying he'd been looking at AI in some games, and I think he looked at Tomb Raider 2, and he'd seen some of the AI was just standing on little balconies, you know, just cycling back and forth over 2 squares, and so he just sent an email saying that I think I could do better than this. And so he got an interview, so he got brought in for an interview, and then he wowed us. Well, he didn't wow me because I wasn't at the interview, but he wowed Jez, and and so he was part of the team. Now we were very dubious, obviously, because he was an academic, so
that's very true.
I love that he got a gig through, you know, constructive criticism, and then put his money where his mouth is. That's awesome. All right, Nate, how do you want to go ahead with the next question?
Yeah. So, how big was the team leading into the last revelation?
We can go ahead and start with you, Andy.
So last revelation. Sorry. So we, I think it was 8 people. So we had. So I think Jerr, you came on as the animator for Lara, didn't you? On
That's right, yeah.
Revelation. So I think we had Jerr. I think we still had another animator, Darren Wakeman.
Phil Chapman as well, don't forget.
Yeah, Phil Chapman did all the deaths and the monsters because he loved seeing Lara dying. And we had Gibby and Chris on programming. We had me, Rich, Jamie, Pete on level design, and I think Joby joined on number 5. So I mean, you know, it was about 8 to 10 people was the max size we ever reached.
Wow.
Yeah.
So it's still very small. That's really interesting.
But not to take it away from the. Sorry, Megan, I didn't want to interrupt. I was just going to say that not to take it away from the FMV guys, because they were obviously they were down the corridor from us, and we'd go in and check, you know, what they were doing, and that was a huge amount of work because you'd have to sit and render things overnight to get like 10 frames, you know. So yeah, it was a different time.
Yeah, I can imagine. So how had the structure of the teams evolved from the first few games, where everyone kind of, like, I know they used to joke that nobody really had a title on the first 2 Tomb Raider games. It was just kind of whatever you worked on and everybody collaborated on things. So was there more of a structure by Tomb Raider 4, or was development still just like ad hoc kind of, I'm taking this level, I'm taking this?
I think from the animation point of view it certainly was, because myself and Phil were sharing the duties. So I was animating Lara and doing the cutscenes and things, and Phil was doing all the, like Andy's saying, all the monsters and making them and animating all that kind of stuff. Whereas, I mean, back in the olden days, you did, like saying, you did a bit of everything really. No one really had a set task, because it wasn't that defined. It just you mucked in to get the job finished.
Yeah.
You know, we didn't ever really get a structure. I mean, you know, we sort of, Rich was kind of overseeing things, but we never got, you know, and that was because we wanted Rich to oversee things because, you know, Rich kind of had more experience than me from a game design perspective or organising game development. But yeah, I mean, we were really just, we all just mucked in, you know. Frequently you'd ask the programmers for something and they'd tell you, you know, no chance, and then you come in the next day and they would have implemented it. So that's a really nice. It's a great team. I've not worked with a better team, you know, in my career, which I'll probably get sacked for when I say no.
I've heard that from many people. You're not the only one from Core who said that it was just a really, really special team. That's super interesting. And I think, so Tom said, you know, there was very different by today's standards. All TR level designers were also artists. There was no such thing as a gameplay designer. That worked out between the level designers and the coders. That's super fascinating. So how did you choose which levels you wanted to do? Did you guys just like claim the one that sounded the most interesting or what you wanted to work on? Or was there actually like someone assigned to things?
No, not at all. No, we, I mean, we sat in a room and then we all decided the level we wanted to do. I wanted to go down. I wanted to make it a bit more contemporary, so I wanted to do London, and I was reading a lot of mythology about the subways and the various elements and fables and myths and legends about London. So I wanted to do that. I think you know, so I think Pete was investigating Alexandria, and so we all had a thing we were kind of really interested in, and that, you know, that kept us really fired up. And so what we did is we basically have to go up to Jez's office and he'd say, well, what are you going to do? She's just trying to get away. That's always happens when I'm trying to explain.
Wife's leaving. She's just going out. I just don't know what's going on. Say goodbye.
See ya. Bye. So we would have to pitch it to Jez, you know, and that's kind of. I think you mentioned, Megan, that on Tomb Raider 5 we were going to do. No, actually, sorry, on Tomb Raider 4 we were going to try and do our own levels again, and Jez said you need to take it back to Tombs because otherwise I'm going to kill you.
I like that. That's a very direct order. You know, you've got the focus there. So let's actually go to Tomb Raider: The Last Revelation, then we'll move into Chronicles, and then we'll do some kind of general questions. So I want to start with the ending. There is almost this like urban legend at this point that some people at Core really actually did want to kill off Lara. And then to some, you know, the other part of it is some people say, oh, even that was just a joke, right? It was always that she would come back. So I'm curious, I've heard both from different people. So Andy, starting with you and then going to Jerr, was there actually a desire to like permanently kill Lara in The Last Revelation?
Yep. Absolutely. So I actually wrote it, as in we sat in a room and we all decided, well, you know, the team members, and I think Joe was there as well, and we sat and we were kind of sick of it. And so we actually wanted to kill Lara, yes. And we actually chose to kill Lara, and it was an absolute definite decision. I can't remember, I've spoken to other members of the team about this, I can't remember why we weren't scared of Jez killing us, because that was a very real possibility. So I don't know, I think we just knew that obviously because we made it ambiguous that she was buried under a tomb, under a pyramid. I mean, you know, so 600 million tons of rock on top of you. You know, you probably could get out of that if you were Lara. So we absolutely did. It was absolutely sitting round the table decision. We just went, right, we can't do 5. We're going to have to just kill her. So we hope that I think in a way as well, we hope that Jez would kind of get in a mood with us and then say you can't do 5. So you know, because we had 2 solid years of hammering, you know, absolutely hammering it on ridiculous hours, and we were young enough to cope with it. But what do you remember, Joe? Do you remember any?
It's very similar. I do remember having a meeting with Jez in a room. Yeah.
You remember that moment? Yeah. I'm like, are you kidding? Yeah, I've heard various quotes from him, like saying, absolutely not, I wasn't going to let him do this.
Well, yeah, but it was just a case of, like Andy's saying, we're working stupid hours. I mean, like a long time. It wasn't like some end of Project Crunch. It was like constant.
Never ended.
It was never ending. And just, it got to a stage where it's just to get so fatigued with it all, you just didn't care. I mean, I've had enough of this.
Well, I think all of us understand why you guys got to that point, but we're very glad that she did come back from under that pyramid. I think a lot of us had like memories of horror. Of like, oh my gosh, what happened? No, not Lara. Anyway,
I do remember. Sorry, Megan. I was just going to say that I do remember when we actually got the FMV in, and I don't know whether I don't know whether Joe worked on that, but when we got the actual FMV in, and I actually was sort of crying in a man way, obviously. But I thought, oh god,
what did we do?
We've done it. We've got away with it. And yeah, it was really well acted as well. Actually, that sequence. I watched it again the other day, and I thought that actually it really stands up, that sequence. Yeah. So thanks to the actors, the amazing scriptwriter, and obviously Pete and the
Yeah, it was a fantastic ending, if a little scary for the fandom. Right, next question.
Next question. So, what sparked the desire to, go back to the tombs with The Last Revelation? Was it an internal desire, or was it based more on fan feedback?
I've got to let Andy answer these questions more than me, because like you said earlier on, a lot of this was designed by himself and the coders working together, whereas those animators were just sat in the background going, just give us lists, we'll do them.
Yeah, I think if I remember, I think it was a case of Jerr and Phil were kind of like, well, we don't want to be in that meeting. We just want to get on with designing. It's like another meeting. No, we'll just stay here and design skeletons and things. And, sorry, what was the question again? It was to
Basically,
do
just
with,
like you know, what made you guys want to go more of like going back to the tomb
Yeah.
feel and stuff like that? Was it more of like an internal desire, or was it more just hearing fan feedback and stuff like that? Just
so we were going to do effectively what we did on 5. We proposed that for 4. And Jay said in no uncertain terms, no, you're not doing that. You need to put it in a tomb because it's called Tomb Raider. And he absolutely made the right decision there because, you know, I think if we'd done 5 in place of 4, the fans might have been miffed. But you know, 4 turned out to be, we were constrained a bit, and that helped us to be more creative in a lot of ways, I think. And certainly, I think you know, Jerr and Phil had a whale of the time with all the enemies and so yeah.
That's awesome. So Andy, you had mentioned that you were going to a script writing seminar before starting Last Revelation, and how did that influence writing the game? Was that like the first time you'd done something that formal prior to helping script the game?
No, I mean, I'd written the script on Blam, and you know, I did a lot of writing, but I thought I'd better go and, you know, actually formalise it to some degree. So I did go to a lot of the Hollywood seminars, you know, the writer's journey, Vogler, and you know, all of the you know, the McKee, went to McKee, and so yeah, you know, it kind of formalised it a bit. But I mean, really, to be quite honest with you, and I'm still, you know, all the games that I've worked on, it basically comes down to a 3-act structure that's, you know, broken down in it. You know, you break it down into more chunks effectively. But yeah, you know, so but once you've learned that, and you've learned the writer's journey, and you've learned the hero's journey, you know, I think you kind of that's all you need to know, really. I think I probably overdid it on the seminars, is what I would say, Megan.
Oh, okay. Well, I think it paid off. I think everybody feels like, in particular, the story in Last Revelation is a lot of fun. And I do have a question about the story at the end, which is fun. Did you have a chance to look at those design docs I sent you, the old ones, yesterday?
I didn't. Did I get them? I don't think I got them, unfortunately.
Yeah.
In which case the answer is no.
We recently, just for context for the fans listening, we recently found these really awesome design docs. They were super, super early. So they were from before you like basically did the script. It was just an early idea, and it features some really interesting ideas. So we'll come back to that a little bit later. All right, next question.
Yep. So so you also said it was somewhat novel to have the script and plot come first in development. So why was the decision made to take that approach this time?
It was because on Tomb 3 we kind of, again, we sort of organised our levels kind of haphazardly, and to some degree we were picking up work from the Tomb 2 team. So Jamie picks up Heather's levels, and so yeah, it was all a bit haphazard. So we kind of decided to make it a little bit more structured for Tomb 4, and just try, and we all sat down and came up with the story together. We all went, oh, I want this in, and I want this in, and you know, and then it kind of was down to me just to go away and write the dialogue and kind of structure it per level. And then as the levels progress, this is something that a lot of scriptwriters and narrative designers don't really understand. You've got to sit with the level designers all the time. We were the level designers, so it was quite lucky. But you know, it's like, I think some narrative designers do think they can just pop in, write a script, come back once in 6 months. You've got to sit with level designers every day, otherwise, because, you know, I've had lots of arguments with level designers about characters where they're going, well, this character have to be, and so eventually I've agreed with them and gone, well, all right, let's get rid of the character, you can kill him in that scene, and then you know, and so then you have to rewrite sections of it. It's an ongoing sort of process, really. So
back and forth. That's interesting. All right, so one of my next questions was, how did AI evolve in Last Revelation? And Tom gave a pretty interesting answer. Is that something you'd be able to speak to, Andy?
It would definitely be if I could find that bit in the document. Oh
yeah,
so
you got it?
No, go on, Megan, if you want to do it.
Yeah, so he said, before the Last Revelation, enemies couldn't jump across gaps, which meant the player could almost always find a location to stand that enemies couldn't get to. So once jumping was added, enemies could get anywhere that Lara could. I was on a bit of a mission to stop players from just finding a good place and standing and blasting everything. So I also tried to move away from enemies just being hit point sponges and towards some of them having more interesting uses and or ways of being killed, sort of more like move to Zelda-like enemies. That's really interesting.
Yeah, so I mean, Tom really tried to it was really interesting because he was really proactive in making the enemies, you had to kill them in certain ways. And I think we also set up things like traps where you could electrocute them. And so he was really excited about the prospect of obviously killing things, but also different ways of, different ways of killing enemies instead of just shooting them. So you had to shoot hats off them and that type of thing. But no, he was really keen on kind of totally upgrading it, and I think he pushed the capabilities to the absolute maximum on the AI for those games.
Yeah, so this is a follow-up on that, and I'm bummed out that he's not here to share this story because you're the one that told me how funny it is listening to him talk about this. But why was the Cambodia section such an AI nightmare for Tom?
Do you want to, Megan, do you want to hold that one? Because let's see if Tom pops in.
Okay, let's see it,
because to see Tom's face.
He just loves talking about this. All right. And then just animations, how did they evolve in The Last Revelation? Is that something you want to talk to, Jerr?
Well, yeah, I mean, the animations were never actually taken away. It was always Toby Gard's original animation set, and each game added more and more to it each time, but they worked. I mean, they were brilliant what they were and everything, so they worked very well.
Yeah,
but,
so just adding. Just
adding more to it. Then, the biggest thing for me was the cutscenes. I had a quick look through the walkthrough last night just to remind myself of it all, and I forgot how many there were. There were hundreds of these blooming things. There were so many.
Yeah.
And then, I mean, back on Last Revelations, there was the Jeep section. That was new, I suppose. You know, in the middle motorbike with the sidecar, which I forgot all about, to be honest. I haven't played it in donkey's years.
Yeah.
There's so many things in there which must have been a case of, they came on to quick, here's motorbike, get it done as quick as you can, and just knocked it out as quick as you can, and, stuck it back in the game. And it worked.
Yeah.
I mean, just watching the video last night, the only thing I didn't like about all that was the sound effects. Sorry, sound guy, but the sound of the motorbike sounds like a wet fart, to be honest. It was just awful.
I'll have to go back and listen to it now. We played it not that long ago. I don't remember it sounding funny, but now I bet I'm not going to be able to unhear that. So Tom did provide a note too, and he said, I'm pretty sure that Lara's animation took more memory than anything else in the game. A huge amount of optimization went into them on PlayStation, including automatically dumping out any animations that couldn't be used in a level. That's smart, such as rope swings if there were no ropes. The PlayStation only had 2 megabytes memory and 1 megabyte VRAM, so about the same memory as a single photo on your phone nowadays.
That's still true today. Animations are always the biggest memory hog of anything, really. They're ridiculous.
Yeah.
They're trying to bring down the amount of memory they use. Different tricks we can do nowadays, but back in those days, it was just, I think the cutscenes were the biggest thing. Some of them went on for quite a long time. And even if you stood there just moving around, the little sprites moving with the mouth, whatever we did back in the day. But they were still long files, and it had to be done that way. So
they swapped the heads out. I was speaking to Gibby. So we had the vowel sounds, obviously, and then it was different heads, and they were flipped between the heads. Yeah.
That's a smart way to do things. All right, our next question. Neha, you got this one?
Yep. So what was the process of selecting and animating new moves like the rope swing and shimmying around corners?
Process will be mostly a coder coming in and sitting down with you, and you just got to sort it out. Oh Lord, what's the process? Something we did 20 years ago.
Well, I'm curious as to how you chose them. How did you decide what Lara should do next? How should she expand her moveset?
That kind of question, that came from design. People wanted to start climbing walls, doing fancy sideways climbs and everything, and the rope swing, and even just sliding down the pipes as well, that kind of stuff. I mean, that came from design originally.
Yeah, I mean, we used, sorry, I was going to say that Rich kind of led this to some degree. As in every game, we would have a meeting which Jerr probably said, I don't want to be at that meeting. And it was a meeting where we were always trying to add some new moves in. So, because we had the same engine, so we had to kind of upgrade it in some way. So we'd always add in we had monkey swings and we had paddling. Remember that one, Jerr? That was a nightmare. The canoe thing.
Balancing, wasn't there? Balancing on a rope, that kind of thing.
Yeah, balance beam. The kayak, is that what you were talking about?
Yeah.
Kayak from TO3? Yeah. I think that was difficult for fans as well. That section, they're always just like, it's okay until you get into rapids, and then everything goes out the window.
Luckily, we didn't have the internet in those days, but I believe you me, I have received some feedback via postcard on my section with the submersible in Lud's Gate, which
okay.
Which I don't think it was entirely a fan favourite. Let's put it that way. There was some crosswords arrived via the post.
Gavin actually shared with us a letter that he got after the Tomb Raider 2 burner haul, where a gentleman was like, basically he thought that he was old enough that he would never get to finish the game, because he's like, I'm not even gonna be able to finish this before I die, because he thought it was so hard. And it was quite an interesting letter, entertaining. All right, so how did additions like the laser sight, different ammo types, the normal poison and explosive, which the explosive are hilarious, binoculars, combining items and so on, how did that influence the game? And it's super interesting because the laser sight was basically the first precision aiming in franchise history, right? Like before it would have just been the lock on, and that was like the first time you actually got to aim. So, you know, how did that influence the design, or how did those ideas come about? Again, was it just like a brainstorm? What do we want to add? What's new? What's exciting?
I think, yeah, you know, it depended on the levels as well, because I think, you know, with Area 51, was that Tomb 3 or Tomb 4? So I think, was it Area 51, Tomb 5? One of them anyway. We kind of based it around, if it fitted the level, we'd try and develop it. So I think the precision shooting, we used to get influenced by films a lot, so The Matrix.
Okay, yeah.
And so, but really, you know, we'd always try and add in some excitement, because we were as excited as the fans, really, to be honest with you, Megan. You know, we genuinely loved it that much, which I think comes through, you know, not Tomb Raider 5 perhaps, but we absolutely loved, you know, working on it and making the you know, I used to sit with you know, at home at night with my wife and the kids, kind of working out, trying to work out new puzzles, you know, and we used to just love it. Yeah. So I've gone off rambling now. So
that's so cool, though, the idea of collaborating with the kids and family at home and creative problem solving. I love that. All right, Neha, up to you.
Yeah, so we needed a tutorial, and I think it was because we wanted to broaden the appeal, which, you know, these days I would advise against putting tutorials in, because it should be a kind of integral part of the game. So it was a very specific tutorial. I tell you what, I think it was probably to do with the prologue in one of the Indiana Jones films, that we wanted to put a prologue in to set everything up in a kind of cool way. But obviously, you know, we enjoyed designing that, and then Tom didn't enjoy so much implementing.
That's fun. And then why did the decision to alter her bio for the Gordon Stun Von Croy, you know, whole story aspect prior to the plane crash? What inspired putting that adventure in her life a little bit earlier?
That was Jerr's idea.
Yeah?
Yeah, but it was so long ago, I can't remember.
Was there a specific reason for Gordon's? Because that's a real place, right? A real.
Yeah, I think I've got an inkling that I know Susie Hamilton, our PR lady. I've got a feeling she changed it over. I don't know whether Gordonston. It's because Gordonston was a real place, but I think now Gordonston references the fact that Lara Croft came out of Gordonston.
Yeah.
So, but I think at the time we also had trouble with the Red Cross. Colours. I think we used to have So I've got a feeling. I remember Susie changing it. She rewrote that. So it was Susie in the PR team that rewrote the bio.
So a lot of us have in the fandom have like a, you know, like the one thing that we're looking for, like an asset that's been lost to time that we want to find. And one of mine is, I have been told, because that some people have seen this, that there is a promotion video for Gordonston. Where basically it is Lara, like digital Lara, alongside a couple of real other students that had graduated from there, who are like rock climbers, Olympic rock climbers, other stuff, and they're used to promote the school. And I've had multiple people say they've seen it, and it was played in theaters sometime around the first movie launched in the UK. And so like it exists, and I've like contacted every animation studio we have ever, like Core or Crystal has ever worked with, like trying to find it. Can't find it. Someday,
never heard of
someday,
it.
Hopefully we'll be able to find this if it exists. Otherwise it's just like a fool's errand, but okay. In what ways did focusing on one location other than Cambodia streamline development, and in what ways did it complicate things for you guys?
Sorry, just repeat
a question.
Go.
No, I'll ask you a question, that one, because I know from the design point of view, you guys, let's say the four of you doing the 4 different levels, you got from working in little corners, and somehow it came together like magic, it all clicked together at the very end and it just worked. I mean, was that a big difference for you then, working on one level?
No, I mean, we all work really well together, but we never ever played each other's levels. So I mean, you know, I was overseeing the general plot, so that was helped it kind of mesh together. But I mean, I was saying to Joby the other night that we never played each other's levels. We'd look over each other's shoulders, and it is the John Romero says this about, you know, you always want to make a better level than your other level designers. So we would kind of be looking at each other and checking out what they were doing, and so you would try to make the best possible level. But no, it still confounds me to this day that it flows to some degree, you know. But I think the plot probably holds it together, Jerr. But I mean, yeah, we just didn't play each other's levels. So I mean, me and Rich worked on Area 51, and we would just use assets from our other levels, and then he'd do a bit and I'd do a bit. But we all worked really well together. But we just wanted to go off and do our own exciting levels, you know, with monsters and ghosts and things.
I love that. So it'd always be a surprise when you'd play each other's levels. You'd be just like the player, like, oh, this is new, exciting.
Never played them, Megan. I was
never.
I was saying
Wow.
this to Joby. Somebody was running through Joby's one of Joby's levels the other night, and I was watching it, and I was like, oh, that looks quite good. I've never seen it. No.
That's fascinating. All right.
The only one that we've all seen, I think, is Tomb Raider 1, because I think Jez forced us to, you know, to be held us at gunpoint and told us to
do it again.
Yeah, play
hilarious.
just to get, yeah. Because I mean, Tomb Raider 1 was much quieter game, and then it sort of got a bit shooty from Tomb Raider 2 onwards. So
that's fascinating. All right, Neha, on to you.
Yep, so how did you ensure diversity of settings and gameplay with everything kept to one setting?
Oh, you mean on Tomb 4?
Yep.
It's never really an issue. I mean, we sort of divvied up the areas. You know, I wanted to do a sort of haunted place, so I did Cairo. And obviously, it's using a game design trope that there's some catastrophe happen where you get all the people off the streets. So, you know, they still use it in films to this day. But it's a very quick way of, hey!
Oh, this is so exciting. Tom, hi.
Hello, everyone.
Hello.
We made it.
This is amazing. All right, super exciting. So we're still talking about Tomb Raider 4, and we saved an amazing question for you, Tom.
I said that we needed to save it for you, Tom, because
good. I'm looking forward to this.
Yeah, so it's nice to virtually meet you, since I didn't get a chance to meet you prior. I'm Megan. This is Neha. You nice know Jerr and Andy, obviously. We've got a good amount of people watching, so this is super exciting. All right, so the question that we want to go back to for you, Tom, is I've heard that the Cambodia section of Tomb Raider 4 was a bit of an AI nightmare, and you can talk to why. So, why was it a nightmare?
Thanks, Andy. I can tell that Andy has set me up for that one.
Oh yeah, he did.
His face.
Yeah. I mean, I think it was basically because in that tutorial, Lara had to get basically Von Croy had to show Lara how to do everything, and basically he had to have exactly the same moves as her, and it had to be 100% repeatable. You know, basically we couldn't have it that things went wrong, yeah, it was just an absolute nightmare. We could get it so it worked 9 times out of 10. But you know, basically, especially if the player was trying to. So I seem to remember the testers all sprinting ahead as Lara and jumping on purpose to the place when Von Croy was about to jump to, just so he would then drop off the landing point.
They sabotage him. That's amazing.
They try and get trapped all the time, didn't they? They used to try and get trapped in areas all the time.
Yeah. I mean, so I felt like I was genuinely having a nervous breakdown. It was also, I mean, the other thing you got that is bizarre from nowadays is like Tomb Raider levels were so huge on PlayStation compared to levels nowadays, and I think Von Croy had to get from the beginning to the end without a break, without any cutscenes in the middle, without any camera changes even. And that was the original intention. So I think in the end we did put in a few camera cuts to basically hide the points where Von Croy just fell off in a ditch or something.
Amazing.
That's my memory of it.
Do you both remember Terry's Chocolate Orange? So at the end of the Cambodia, there's a gigantic chocolate orange that peels open. And Von Croy gets his trousers caught on it. We were never entirely convinced by that. So
that's hilarious. I love I love hearing like the internal terms for things like that. If they're not named, like what people refer them to, it's hilarious. So here's another good one then, because we were going to move on to the Tomb of Semirkut next. So that's a fan favorite area in Tomb Raider, The Last Revelation. So how did the idea of playing Senate come about? What was it like programming the AI for that? I think that is just the idea of a game within a game was super novel. I feel like at the time it was really awesome.
So I think that was, I think that was my idea. Basically, I'm kind of really into board games, and I think that I was talking to Jamie Morton, who did that level, and we just sort of said, well, instead of a puzzle, could we actually put in this kind of quite simple, but it is actually thematic because obviously it was an Egyptian game. So it's just could we get this board game in there basically, and it was interesting the actual kind of programming, it was not too bad, but it was interesting trying to get the opponent to be like stupid enough that you could beat them, but clever enough that you didn't feel like it was just too easy.
Mm-hmm. You got to feel that victory moment.
Yeah, and I think also teaching the player. I can't remember exactly how we did a tutorial on it, but I seem to remember that was a big problem as well. Just people going, "What the hell what are we meant to be doing here?"
Well, we used to nick a lot of because we would run out of ideas for puzzles really, so we would start nicking a lot of and not in that case, but we'd start stealing a lot of actual board game ideas. So we try and work in small board games here and there too, but obviously that's a hugely complex thing that you built there, Tom. I just meant that we'd always be trying to steal things from as we ran out of ideas, any simple games we could kind of incorporate into the puzzle design we did. So
okay.
Yep.
That's awesome. All right, so next question is TR4 had an amazing variety of foes. So who were your favorites and why? Let's start with you, Jerr. There were so many bad guys in different types of bad guys, from like locusts to different beetles to skeletons and giant monsters. So what were your favorites in Tomb Raider 4?
I've got to say Skellies, but I mean again, that was more the other guy, Phil Chapman. I mean, that was his forte. He loved doing that kind of stuff. He got a kick out of it. He just churned them out. I don't know if he might have done some that didn't actually make it to the game for all I know. He was just doing it constantly, day after day after day. But I think the Skellies, that was my favourite one.
All right, how about for you, Tom? Did you have a favourite?
I'm afraid it probably is skeletons as well. Partly because it was like a personal, it was just like a big thing when I finally got him to jump across gaps and follow Lara, because it took so much work to do that. And it was like and there were various technical reasons why that was just so difficult, all to do with kind of PlayStation, how limited the memory was on there. So getting enemies to jump, but also just putting in little Easter eggs, like the fact that you could shoot them with a shotgun and it would knock them back, or you could blow their skulls off with the laser sight. But as Joe said, it's just partly down to Phil's like kind of very Harryhausen-esque skeleton animations. He was just so fast at just doing
I like that description. That's a good way to put it, is Harryhausen. I like that a lot. Yeah, that's true.
Awesome.
Yeah, we were all huge fans of Harryhausen, so it was kind of we influenced a lot by films, but he did an amazing job. Yeah, I've got one for Tom actually. It's I think it's Sophia.
Yeah. Any particular reason?
Oh God!
I think I'll let Tom explain it again.
Was that into which one was
Sorry,
that?
That was Tomb 3, wasn't it? Sorry.
That was Tomb 3. Yeah.
But still, I'm interested in knowing why.
It's just that that's where me and Tom sort of bonded to some degree over over many. Well, I think it's about 3 weeks. From it was from 10 in the morning till 4 in the morning the next day, every night. Just trying to get it, because it's when you were talking about the issues with the AI with Von Croy. So I think we kind of cut our teeth on the Sophia, which was awful.
Yeah,
game.
We just had this this kind of, it was one of those things where the idea of having an enemy where you weren't face to face but you were going up the buildings sort of in parallel seemed like a great idea.
Yeah, on paper, and then the actual difficulties of getting the AI to do what you want it to do, and things like camera control when you're you need to see what your enemy's doing, but obviously if they're on the opposite building to you and you're trying to climb, then
we tried to play it the other night, didn't we? And we had not the slightest idea what we were doing.
So there are various enemies in Tomb Raider have left their own scars on us. Mentally, I think.
I can imagine. All right, Neha, next question.
All right, so let me scroll up. How did the idea for the Sphinx Bull come about, making them invincible but part of solving a puzzle? were there aim challenges for them?
Are you okay with me answering this one?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, I don't even
Sorry,
remember.
mate, I don't want to be dominated. So basically,
We want you to dominate, Tom.
not, yeah. Well, it's just I had this big when I first I mean, don't get me wrong, I absolutely love Tomb Raider 1 and 2, but one of the things I tried to get away with is this whole thing about enemies being bullet sponges, that you basically just sat there and or bounced around and just shot over and over again until it was dead. And I was playing a lot of Zelda Ocarina of Time around the time of Tomb 3 and 4, and basically I just wanted to get in more Zelda-esque enemies that were more like puzzles, or you had to think about how to kill them rather than just shooting them, or they even did things for you. So this whole thing about having an enemy which was actually in itself a puzzle and you could work out how to use it and you couldn't directly kill it was, I mean, I've got to say it was basically Zelda was the inspiration for that, just because of getting enemies in more like that.
But it was super cool because it combined those like combat and puzzle solving. It like combined two different pillars of the gameplay. That was really rad.
So basically, you used it to smash through walls, did you? Or
Yeah.
They used that a lot of it. Go on, Tom.
Well, I was going to say, yeah, I think it was something like basically you had to stand in front of the wall because it would charge you and it would go in a straight line. So basically, you had to it was like a sort of Jeopardy thing. If you had to stand there for almost until it hit you and then jumped out of the way so it hit the wall behind you.
Gears of War, nicked that. Berserker.
Yeah.
Royalties.
All right. Well, looking at the time, I want to make sure we have time to get to the Chronicles level. So I'm going to skip around a couple of questions quick. But Neha, do you want to ask the pyramid question? We'll skip to that one and make sure that we have enough time to get to the other one.
Sure. So how did Lara survive the pyramid collapse in the last revelation? We know in AOD she says she was rescued by a tribe, but how did she actually get out of the pyramid?
Yeah, go on, Andy.
Let's go on the record.
I think we did.
Yeah, I was going to say, yeah, I think you're right, Joe. Yeah, it's, I think it was, let's say it was reverse engineered, as that she found an escape route as designed by Jez's Fury.
All right.
No, honestly, we never wrote that in, you see, because Chronicles, she was dead, you know, and it was and then we got a different there was a different writer in because I left on Chronicles at the end of Chronicles, so we got a different writer in. So you know, the tribe thing I only heard about the other day. So but I mean, really, there's so many, you know, hidden passages and areas that haven't been explored in the Great Pyramid even to this day that we kind of assumed that you could. Yeah, you could basically say there's a back door. Yeah.
I love it. That's awesome. Okay, couple of other questions for Last Revelation. What do you think that each of the biggest challenges was for you on Last Revelation, and then what are you most proud of? You want to start, Jerr? Biggest challenge and most proud of.
Challenge was the amount of work that went into it. It was vast. I mean, like some of the guys were saying earlier on, it's just those games are huge, even compared to nowadays. And there was just so much work and cutscenes, and it was like lots and lots of city-long hours just to get things done. It was the biggest challenge, like so.
And what were you most proud of?
I think, to be honest, it was just. I mean, looking back with like starry eyes and everything at the time, it was like the graphics weren't. Looking at them now, the graphics are appalling in some respects. But back at the time, we were really, really chuffed with what we managed to do, which might sound corny, but we really were.
Gorgeous. I am a massive fan of Last Revelation's model. I love her face, and her little pouty mouth and nose is so cute. So, like, I think that it still stands up amazingly.
Yeah, I think it does. Yeah, graphically.
Tom, how about for you? What are you most proud of, and what was the most challenging for you?
I think it probably was getting those AI changes in because I don't know if I mean, our primary platform was the PlayStation, so everything, although, you know, a lot of people played on PC, everything had to fit on the PlayStation, and the amount of memory on the entire PlayStation was less than the average memory for an average photograph on a phone nowadays. So just trying to squash everything, you know, the amount of memory that Lara's animations took up. So just trying to get all of the AI fitted in there and getting into jumping and basically getting the enemies being able to do whatever Lara did was my proudest thing in there, I think.
Awesome. How about for you, Andy?
The challenge was the motorbike, because we only found out later that, well, I found out after I designed all the levels that Chris, one of the programmers, couldn't save the position of the motorbike between levels. So consequently, it made all of the entire motorbike sections redundant. And so that, and that was like a month's work. But also, but Chris, after swearing at me and threatening to hit me, then I came back in, like I said, a couple of days later, and he basically fixed it. But so, he using his mad skills, as the youth might say, he managed to implement a system that saved even in such an early PS1 title, that saved the positions between level loads. So I mean, I'm really proud of the script. And that noise, proud of. Is that a new noise for the fans? It says "Shut up, Andy."
No, not at all.
Okay, a couple of quick questions then. Does anybody know why Lara's diary was scrapped from Tomb Raider 4? Originally there was like a diary in the menu, and then I think you could read up on things, or it just gave a little extra insight.
Tom?
I don't, unless it was dumped because of, I mean, again, it's so boring. It might have been because of memory.
It was memory,
just because
I'm pretty sure it was memory.
It seems like the only way we could put text on screen, we had to have a whole screen picture, and especially the other thing was we have to do the German version, and I would just remember that every piece of text in German took up twice as many screens as all of the other versions because of the language.
Yeah.
Being longer,
but it was. I mean, it's popped up a lot in Uncharted and other games. That it's a lot of us have been influenced by the Raiders of the Lost Ark, the one with the Sean Connery with you had that journal, and you just wanted to read it, and you was like, oh my god, I would love to see what was in there. We were very excited about that, and we wanted to try and recreate that, and then obviously realised that we had 1 megabyte of memory.
Yeah, I can imagine there were a lot of constraints there. Okay, let's move on to Tomb Raider Chronicles then, so we can make sure that we're moving forward and get to touch on this game. So when did Core move to Pride Park? This was 2000, right? So was it before or after or during the production of Chronicles? Just trying to get that context.
Can't remember.
I can't remember, actually, no.
So it must have not been like a super disruptive, like during development and threw everything off.
I think it was during, but I could
be
wrong.
Block it from memory.
Or was it just after?
I think it was just after.
Wasn't there a stage where we waited for a break and then we all dashed down? Is that what happened?
Yeah.
What did you guys think about the new office? Because like the old Core building was it was like actually a home, wasn't it? Like a house and different rooms and stuff like that. And what did it feel like moving to this new office?
Well, we liked it because you had the free ice cream, and then Jez would take you out for a steak, which was free each night over the road at the Harvester. But we were just talking earlier about some practices in larger software houses that I was saying that we've used to replicate that at Core Design.
Yeah.
No, we do. I mean, from my perspective, we were all really excited because it was a new fancy office. But it was just the same, really. But not as personal, I suppose.
Yeah, not as homey, I suppose.
I quite liked the old, it was characterful, cramped office.
It's hard to replicate that in anything new, I think.
Well, there's an office before that one again, before Tradewin's house. There was the old white building. I can't remember. And that was a weird building. That was little nooks and crannies and staircases and all sorts all over the place. You get little tiny rooms here and there. Well, I mean, the cool thing about the new office though was they had these curvy corridors right down the length of the building.
Yeah, that's really strange. Yeah, all of the corridors were like wave shaped. It's very
down the length of the building. It was cool. I think the good thing was though, you did feel that Core was going somewhere. Core was going to be big because the building just looked astonishing. To be honest,
it did.
Yeah, I love that. So obviously Tomb Raider: The Last Revelation was intended to lead into Angel of Darkness. We all know this, right? So at what point did your team find out that Chronicles was the thing? Like find out like that you needed to come up with a game in between, and understanding everybody was burnt out and all of that. Like when did you find out? When were you told? And how was that taken?
So like Jeff stole into our bedrooms with a shotgun and says, "Get back to work." I think that's it.
Did it work? It obviously worked.
Well, it kind of worked. Yeah.
Ruled by fear.
That's metaphorical. I mean, we used to, I would wake up each at 4 a.m. every morning sweating that Jez was in my bedroom with a shotgun.
Honest to God, me too. It was like I used to dream about Jez. I was scared.
Yeah,
He's
we have to get him onto one of these
watching
interviews
It was-
someday. I would love to hear about his.
The thing is,
leadership.
I kind of feel sorry because I kind of like I feel like I feel like in some ways I did him a disservice because it's like at the time I can understand now all of the kind of pressures he was under, but
Yeah.
at the time you'd be in a meeting with him and he would stare at you with his scary laser blue shark eyes and you'd feel in peril of your life.
Yeah, we used to talk about, it was in Jaws, wasn't it, where they described Quince talking about the eyes rolling over black as the shark eats a person, and that's what we used to describe Jez's eyes like when we knew that we'd overstepped the mark. The eyes rolled over black. And
he's going to watch this one day. You know that. You do realize that he's going to sit back and watch this one day and laugh his head off.
Yeah, I think he will laugh.
No, he loves all this. No, he loves all this. No, he was a great boss. He was a great boss, but we didn't understand like the trials and that he was going through at the time.
For sure.
Yeah.
And so essentially what the situation was that the movie was coming out and they wanted like another game to be associated at the same time as the movie. Was that the situation between it? Just keep Tomb Raider games top of mind during the movie?
Can't remember. You guys might know better than me.
I think, to be honest, the shareholders forced us to do it, didn't they? Because by then we were a large company, there was the shareholders behind us all. They just became important. Every Christmas the game had to come out, kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it had to be. Yeah, 1 year. I mean, the idea now that you'd write a AAA game in a year, well, probably less, probably exactly, 9 months by the time we'd had a.
Yeah. Ridiculous, not possible. And it seems like it was hardly possible then. Like considering what you guys were able to put out under those constraints, it's incredible. All right, so there was such a short period between Tomb Raider 4 and 5. Was there time for much of an evolution when it came to things like AI and animations and all of that kind of stuff? Or was it more of just like iteration where you could and get out a new adventure?
I think it was that, it was just iteration. I think stuff was added in again there, but it was just adding more on, just get those as quick as we could. I think, there was... I'm trying to think what was put into that game, to be honest, animation-wise, new.
The tightrope walking and swinging from suspended bars and so on.
Yeah. Again, that'd be I can't remember if I was sitting there with Tom at that stage for the AI kind of things. I was sitting there with the code at some point, and we're design as well, and trying to come up with how these moves would work and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I think. Yeah, because I think it's basically during Tomb 3 we were all kind of learning our craft, and then Tomb 4 I think we were actually really passionate about it and really kind of like just put in loads of creativity, and then by Tomb 5 it was like it wasn't like phoning it in. I mean, I think we wanted to make the best we could, but I think the kind of creative spark had got dimmed.
Yeah, there wasn't enough of a gap. I do remember, I think we thought we were pitching new ideas, and we were told effectively we had to do it. We all had to find something in it that could motivate us, and we did. But I mean, it was very much a case of there wasn't so much. We all still got on like a house on fire, but it was very much a case of we were all sitting in corners with the headphones on, just trying to do it really.
I can imagine. So how did the idea of the memorial and retelling her past adventures come up? So that was like a super creative solve for the problem that you guys were in, having, firmly cemented yourself in the narrative between Tomb Raider 4 and AOD. So when did that come up, and how did you end up landing on the specific adventures you wanted to tell?
I don't think we could figure out a way to bring her back so quickly. So, and also we were heavily influenced by Indiana Jones. I think the Indiana Jones Chronicles or something on the TV. There was it was a TV series, with different stories each week describing, Indiana Jones as a child. And so I think we looked at that and thought, So, and in those days, obviously, TV wasn't a big thing. So you didn't really have these massive commodities or IPs like Indiana Jones on the TV. And so we were like, right, we could actually do sequential stories. And I think also that helped with us not going mad, because we all had a choice in what we could create for each level. So, if you wanted to make a Russian submarine, you could do it,
Yeah, so that was how it was landed on. I feel like Richard did say that he was heavily influenced by the Matrix, and I think that's why he worked on the New York levels, I think, the VCI levels. Yeah, so everybody just kind of chose where they wanted to go. And
we had to find some creativity, some inspiration and motivation. So we were all motivated by our own levels, I think. How did you guys get on? Did you, motivation-wise? I imagine you must have been at rock bottom when I asked you to make
it must have, I mean, it's like I said before, though. I mean, like, we didn't have much to do with the design side of things, which is the hard thing, to be honest. I mean, like, come up with the idea, the fresh look and everything. I mean, we just literally were given a list of work to do, which I like to do. I personally like working that way. You give me a list of animations to do, I'll give them to you back as quick as I can. But I mean, when it came down to doing the whole, what level we're doing, we're going to Ireland, I'm going, oh, for me, that's brilliant. But I wouldn't have a clue where to start, personally. I wouldn't have a clue where to start. So,
that's
I mean,
cool.
guys, I mean, like Andy, the guys, I know physically a lot of people were drained from the previous games, and it's like, and actually, to be honest, hearing him say that now, I didn't realize that's what happened in terms of like everyone did their own levels just to have some sort of like a creative spark brought back into it again.
Yeah,
it's very good.
That's kind of a silver lining to a tough development, I suppose, is having that little bit of like ownership and creative freedom over that. That's interesting. All right. So specifically to Rome. So who led the Rome levels? Do you guys remember?
It was Andrea, Andrea Cordello. So he was new to the team. So we didn't really speak to Andrea a huge amount, but I just got on with it because he was Italian, obviously. So we trusted that he knew what he was doing. He'd done some tests, I think, hadn't he, Tom? I think he'd done some tests for the team, and we said, let's have him here.
Yeah, well, the levels turned out really great, and I know that fans loved the opera segment in the beginning. That's one of like the most fun and iconic scenes in the whole franchise, is Lara jumping onto the stage and taking a bow as she runs off with a stone. That's hilarious. So would any of you guys know, like, I don't know, Andy, if this was part of the scripting process, but why they brought back Larson and Pierre in those levels? Was it just like having that nostalgia factor of those two characters?
Yeah, no, I mean, I really enjoyed, that was one of my favorite scenes, writing with the kicking in the head scene. That was one of my I was just amusing myself. But really, as bringing back characters, and obviously we all talked about the actual plot, but in fact I'm not entirely sure we did. I mean, I was just me messing about really with regards, it's a major AAA multi-million-pound franchise. If you tried to do it now, you'd be assassinated. But in those days, I just sat at home, wrote a stupid story, amused myself, and the Larson and Pierre thing, I always thought they were quite entertaining, in the amusing characters. So I thought I'd bring them back. Yeah, and it was to try and tie everything together, because we knew that was going to kind of be our last one with that engine. So we wanted to show a bit of everything really, and it was supposed to show some of Lara's history. So yeah,
I love the scene with them trying to go through the gate. We're like, you're not going to make it. We're going to make it. We're not going to make it.
Very strangely, that because I was watching that the film, with The Rock, where it's got a kind of Lara Croft alike figure. What's it called?
I can't remember.
Yeah. So, but anyway, they've got exactly the same lines. They're trying to get across the cliff, and he's going to make it, not going to make it, and then they fall off.
Oh my gosh! Now I'm going to have to look that up. If anybody in chat knows, let us know. I love hearing these inspirations.
Yeah. Well, okay. I mean, I doubt that. But it's exactly the same lines, basically. Yeah.
That's hilarious. So for Russia, there was obviously like the cool idea of trying to find the Spear of Destiny, and the extreme death suit with the chaff flares were super cool. That was a really neat set piece. So any inspiration around that? Or was there any like AI or animation challenges with getting the chaff flares to work with the incoming missiles and all of that?
I don't know. Sorry.
It was a long time ago, to be fair.
It does feel like I almost feel like this has been erased from my brain. It's like stress. My memory of Chronicles is so poor.
Well, Joby was talking about that level, and and I said this to Jerr, and Jerr just looked nonplussed. But Joby actually said last week that he he designed that suit with you. And you both sat down and came up with the idea together. So
I went through a quick playthrough the other night, and I was looking. I mean, it's the first time I should do some modelling on Lara as such, apart from the young Lara and everything. Mm-hmm. But actually, because she had the camouflage outfit first as well, with that hat on.
That is super cool.
And then she had the whole the heavy metal wetsuit, underwater suit, whatever it was like. And like I think the animations the underwater animations are quite easy. It's just like a person doing that leg kicking, and making them turn and do some turns wasn't hard. But I think the cutscenes again, is that whole cutscene when she had to get into the suit in the first place. That was a pain. That really was.
I saw it actually. Yeah.
And like I remember, you did the typical close up. I did the typical close up trick. like she's trying to get into a suit, she lifts herself up and then cut to her face, and she's all lowers down. And she's wearing his legs. You know what I mean? That old stuff. But
Awesome.
Yeah, again, to be honest, I haven't played these games in such a long time, but the memories are flying back now. Just listen to these two talking about stuff as well. Like, so this is cool.
Yeah, that's usually what happens is once people start talking, they all kind of
Yeah.
come back, which is why I love having multiple people on at once. It's so cool. All right, so how about Ireland? Obviously, young Lara. That was super cool. It was so cool seeing young Lara in Tomb Raider 4. So was there a different approach to this level with the fact that she wasn't armed? Were there different animations, or was it just the same animations in general, AI and all that kind of stuff, you know, as big Lara?
So we were utilising a game design, level design trope there that's utilised in a lot of games, and in most of the Tomb Raider games where you lose all your weapons for one level. And so, you know, we had the no weapons level, but I was really excited and influenced by folklore and legend, and you know, I grew up in Scotland, and you know. And obviously being influenced by such beautiful men as Jerr with regards to Irish influence, but you know, so it's really to do with folklore, you know. And we had the lady in the Jenny Green Teeth, the monster in the lake, which is a very common motif in kind of early Scottish communities, where you'd have, I imagine, to stop kids from running down and falling into the lake and drowning, but there would be water kelpies and things that would come out of the water and abduct kids. And so, you know, it was kind of lots of kind of all based around real folklore and legend. So that was exciting for me. So I was really, you know, inspired by that. But I don't know, I think probably, you know, these guys might have some memories of the combination, because so we started combining items for puzzles because we just didn't have enough scope with one item per puzzle. So, you know, so when I had, you know, I thought it was the cleverest puzzle in the world, getting an old bike tire and the end of a pitchfork and making
the catapult. Yeah,
that was really genius. It was super cool.
Well, I think these days, I don't think it would be called genius these days, Megan, but
it was super cool. Like, it was one of those things that, like, you felt kind of like MacGyver at the time. You're like, yeah, I'm super resourceful. Like, I can do even without a weapon. Like, I can make it, right? So it just made you feel like Lara.
I think so. AI wise, so I had them little imps, didn't we, Tom? I don't know if you remember them.
Yeah. So I was going to say again, I think it was just trying to, like you say, trying to give a change of pace in the same way you're not having a weapon. So suddenly you've got enemies that are like this sort of Zelda-esque kind of puzzle, like, you know, basically running away and dodge, because that's kind of interesting in the game when you've suddenly got to run away and dodge things rather than just shoot them, and kind of using the torch. I seem to remember as well, using the torch and the iron to basically were we kind of herding them or distracting them or repelling them? So basically
the little imp ones, they were creepy. Oh man,
yeah.
Just like strength in numbers. Like alone they weren't scary, but like on the big group you were just like terrifying. And the sea hag where you had to distract her with the coin and trap her in the cage. Like
that was Jenny Green Teeth. Yeah, that was the underwater
Yeah, I love that. All right, so for VCI, with, you know, finding the iris and so on in New York, that was really interesting because then it introduced that stealth and chloroform mechanic. You know, like, you got obviously development was rushed and so on, but there was like some really unique new sort of set pieces or setups in these situations for each of the levels. So having that stealth and the chloroform was really cool. So anything in particular inspire that?
Well, that'll be Rich's level. I mean, I think Rich, you know, was always really excited by new gameplay, you know, systems or mechanics, really. So, you know, he'd always be he would really be pushing a lot of the new mechanics in the game, and trying new things from a sort of mechanic design perspective. Whereas, you know, so yeah, his levels featured a lot of that type of thing. So, you know, for instance, I think we talked a lot about a grappling hook, and grappling hooks are still a bit of a no-no in game design because obviously you can then access almost anywhere in the entire level. So consequently, you have to corral the player. But you know, I think Rich was really pushing for that, and it caused issues. But we all, you know, all of us kind of fought together to hammer it and make it work. You know, which is great.
Yeah.
Another interesting thing is that because it's just the kind of way that game rules have changed, because there were only a dozen of us working on that. It's like the, you know, level designers were designers but also artists, and but like nowadays you'd have just a gameplay designer, but we didn't have anyone specifically in that role. So we would just talk about, you know, the level designers and the coders and stuff would talk about gameplay design, and we'd kind of thrash it out and work out how things were going to work. But yeah, so it's got very different roles to what you get nowadays in the industry, I think.
Yeah, I mean, it was interesting because there was also the HK gun that had the sniper, burst, or rapid. So there was like 3 different fire modes on a gun, and then the grappling gun that basically, I think it's just the one that hung the ropes, or it basically hung ropes, and then you could use that to navigate. But yeah, super. There was a lot of really interesting things in there. I also like the X-ray thing. That was super cool, where Lara runs through and like you see her little skeleton.
Oh yeah,
that was so cool.
So that was taken straight from. Oh God!
Total Recall.
Total Recall. Yeah, Total Recall.
Yeah. I can see that. Yeah, so many sci-fi influences there. That's awesome. Were there any additional locations in mind for Chronicles? And if so, where would they have been set? Or did you guys like only have the 4 locations, narrow in on it, and that was it?
Blackpool.
Where?
Blackpool. It's a town on the east coast of England with a big tower.
Right. Was that a personal dream you wanted to get?
That was my personal dream. I never told any of the team.
All right, that would have been awesome.
Yeah.
There was one in Vegas, so I suppose Blackpool's kind of the British version of Vegas. I think
I can just imagine
really?
it now.
I mean, I could be Googling that after this.
I'm just imagining it now, 1/4 of an hour sequence where you're just scaling up the Blackpool Tower.
That would have been designed by me.
Yeah.
All right, if each of you could develop one of the 4 stories in Chronicles into a full game, which would it be? Which one do you think had the most legs to like make it its own adventure? How about Jerr? How about for you? Which one do you think is the coolest?
I liked the Russian one because it had so much to do with the whole Lara look and feel. But I mean, Ireland obviously, because there's something like Andy said, so many legends stories. That's easy.
So much more folklore to explore there.
Well, I'm just very glad he didn't go for leprechauns. I'm just thankful for that, to be honest.
Yeah. To be fair, he didn't go for the lowest hanging fruit there. How about for you, Tom?
I mean, I'm going to say Ireland just because Andy will get in the mood if I was saying any of the other levels. So
I was saying that we go on to this.
No, I was going to say I just can't remember half the stuff in Russia or New York. I've just got so little memory of it. It's terrible.
So I remember me and Rich, working on the script for Zip, I think it was, or the character in the New York sequences. We had to do a lot of re-recording for that. But I mean, yeah, probably, obviously I'd say Ireland because I love folklore and legends and ghosties and monsters. So
yeah, awesome. Yeah, I mean, like the whole mood in Ireland was definitely creepy. Like it was I'd say the most intense and intimidating sort of feel in the classic Tomb Raider games. It was really awesome.
Great.
All right, so we're gonna just wrap up into some general questions and then we'll open up for fans. But so what did each of you roll off onto or do after shipping Chronicles? So Jerr, what were you up to afterwards?
No, we went straight to Angel of Darkness then after that. I was doing Curtis. That was my job, to animate Curtis from scratch.
Amazing. I'm sure fans are super, super, super appreciative of that. Also, FYI, I've been, like I mentioned, I've been going through all those boxes of stuff I found from Core Design. I found tons and tons of like behind the scenes animation stuff for Curtis that we're going to be sharing next month. So hopefully that'll be like a little, like a lot of animations that were unused or stuff like that. So maybe that'll be a fun trip down memory lane for you.
Well, yeah, there was the whole chapter thing, wasn't there? Is that what we called this? The chapter? His throwing weapon?
Yeah, there's some early ones where he had like his really early model and stuff. Like it's really cool.
We couldn't do it code-wise. I think that's what it was. We dropped it towards the end, so he sort of walked around the game, sort of talking to it the whole time, not being useful really.
Okay.
It's very strange.
And how about Tom? For you, what did you? Oh, go ahead, Andy.
Sorry, no, I was just going to say. I was going to ask what Jerr's doing now, but I think you're going to move to that later, aren't you?
Yeah, we'll finish up with that, and then and then go to fan questions. How about for you, Tom? What did you roll on to after?
I couldn't take doing Tomb Raider anymore. Just felt so kind of burnt out. So I left with a couple of the other programmers from Tomb Raider, and we made Game Boy games for a while.
Oh, awesome!
Unsuccessfully. I mean, they were great. They were great, but just we made Game Boy games just at a time as everyone else in the world was making them. So
yeah, I suppose that was a good time for Game Boy games. How about for you, Andy?
So I left with one of the level designers, Pete, to formulate a company which was a complete failure. As with there's a theme here, and then after a few years, I went back to Core just before it was bought out by Rebellion. At which stage Gavin was just put in charge, and in his own words, it was like being put in becoming the pilot of a plane as both the wings were on fire.
Not an easy task for sure.
So me and Tom worked together again on. I think Joe, you just left, but me and Tom worked together on Shell Shock 2 and Rogue Warrior, one of the greatest games ever made.
Yeah. Okay. And then a couple of general questions. Well, this is actually a fairly specific one, but question general to the games as a whole. So how are cutscenes made? This was a very adamant fan wanted to know this. How are cutscenes made? They play in real time in the classic games, but what was the process and how were they imported or exported with all the geometry, camera data, and animations into the editor and game?
Yeah.
Wow. Is this, do you remember all that process?
From what I remember, was there a way of exporting out the geometry from the editor? Just in block form? Is that what we did? Probably. I think so. We got rough, because it's all block form, I got a rough idea of blocks sent to me in a file, which I used then as a reference for the characters within the cutscene. And they're just exported as one long sequence, which is why some animations were so big size-wise, style-wise. But
I think you're right. I think we must have had like an FBX export or something. I remember being,
Okay. Was there a holy cow moment for each of you when you realized the franchise had really taken off? I know you kind of all joined at different times, but was it like the movie or the comics, or like what was that moment that you guys were just like?
When Jez bought his third Learjet, I think that's when I realized.
It was when we got the free ice cream on the stage.
Oh yeah, you're just like, we've made it. This is top tier.
I can't remember really. I mean, did you ask about so I mean, movies wise, and we didn't see any of that really. We were just continuing to work on the.
You're just so heads down. Was there like a showing that you guys got to go to for the movies?
Well, no, I have got a funny story with Nell McAndrew.
Yeah.
Nell McAndrew came in to the Tomb Raider room, which we just had one room with 8 people in it, or 10 people, and she was dressed fully in the Lara gear. And so I think Adrian came in and introduced her, and we were all just we were turning around and we went like, "Yeah, you're all right," yeah. And then just had it, and she was walking around the room basically saying, "Hello, are you okay? What are you doing?" She's really nice, and we were just like, "Yeah, I'm just okay, I'm just doing this," and didn't even I mean, most people go, "Oh my God, you get to meet Nell McAndrew in the Lara suit." We would have all been taking photos with her now, but we were just didn't even notice. Yeah. So it was all a bit silly, but.
But was there just that? I mean, like, it wasn't like surreal to you to see this woman wearing this uniform or this character that you were working on, and like, so was there a moment? Was it like the movies or the comics or anything, or really you guys were just so heads down that it was kind of not until later you realized the massive scope of the franchise?
No, I think we used to get in a mood about it. Go on, sorry, Joe. Yep.
No, I was just thinking, looking back at it now, there was a constant flow of like TV crews coming in and reporters and constant, and it got to a stage where it just became the norm, if that makes sense. You just got used to it. And so, we knew it was a big game, but you didn't realize how much of an influence it really was having on people.
Yeah.
Long time have passed, to be honest.
Yeah.
That was one of my worst moments when there was a TV crew. I think it was like the day before we were meant to be submitting the gold, the gold disc for Tomb Raider, probably Lost Revelation. And I was on the phone to Louise saying, basically, I'm sorry, I'm not going to make it home again tonight, because I'd been there, stayed overnight for two, and we had like a new baby, and it was like, and I suddenly realized when I was on the phone to her, like, really emotional, I'm really sorry, love, and I looked up and there was like a camera in my face from across the room, and I was so absolutely livid. I was like proper.
I hope they respected and didn't use that, but yeah. Like,
I don't think they did, but I would just remember that was one of the moments when I really felt like just storming off. Yeah, it's horrible.
Well, we all tried to protect each other. So we all looked after each other, and we tried to, we talked a lot more about, the issues we were having and things, which you don't really get so much in the bigger studios these days. We would sit down, and if somebody was having in a real state, we'd kind of say, look, trying to help in whatever way we could, really. But,
yeah. So a smaller team and closer knit and stuff, I can imagine. Yeah. All right. Any interactions and memorable stories with fans or at events? Anything that stands out to you?
Yeah, go on, Tom.
So I've just remembered the cyclist.
Yeah, that was what I thought.
Mills. The guy from the Netherlands that biked to the studio and then got a dinner date with Lara.
Yeah.
Well, yeah,
Well,
go on, Tom.
You might be
no, go on.
watching.
You tell it, Andy, because you're better at telling
No,
it.
not at all. It's just that there's only one bit I remember. It's just that as he arrived through the door, I remember because we hadn't had any contact with him, and he cycled all the way from Holland, and he was a mega fan. But I do remember when he came through the door, Jez moved from being in front of all of us to behind all of us. He just
Really?
sidled behind us, and we were like, "Hang on, what?" You know, obviously we thought, right, something funny's going on here, but that was the only bit I remember from that.
But no, it's a bit scary though, because when Jess made us all stand outside the car park to applaud him coming in, as he cycled in, kind of thing, yeah. And this guy cycles in, and then I just remember there's one. I don't know if it's true now. So if you're watching this, I apologise if I'm getting it wrong, right? But he went out on a date with Lara, the model who
he did, yeah.
And then Susie had to go along with the girl's boyfriend just to watch him, and he was saying things like he was talking to her as if she was Lara the whole time, which was a bit scary to me. You know, Lara,
a lot of fans used to do that. Like the Lara models were so convincing that like people would talk to them as if they're Lara.
But us lot was, like Andy's saying, we're sat there bemused when she walks into the room. We're going, what's going on? This is mad. This is mad.
The other thing I can remember from that was there was like TV camera. There was a camera when we were all outside in the car park, and I remember Dale coming back about like 2 hours late from lunch, like trying to skulk his way through the car park, and trying to dodge behind the car so he wasn't seen by the cameras. You know?
I love it.
All
right, so go ahead.
Sorry, Megan, I just really quickly just say that I spoke to Joby for the first time in like 10 years. Last week, and I questioned him. You guys will remember this. I questioned him about his lunchtime sleeping habits, which effectively he'd go out into his car, and both his feet would be sticking out of the back car window, and then he'd just sleep for about 2 hours with his feet sticking out of the back window of the car. And I said, what happened, Joby? Why don't you just go home and have a kip? And basically he was like, I don't remember that.
He blocked it from his memory. It's amazing. All right, so I'd love to find out what are all of you up to today, and then Neha will throw to some fan questions if you have those ready after this. So, all right, Jerr, what are you up to today? What are you doing?
Very brief history. And so when Circle became the new core after core split, that lasted for a couple of years, and that went down. So I went to work at Team 17 for a few years. Then I went to Activision. They opened a studio in Leeds doing mobile division stuff, mobile games, I should say. And that lasted a couple of years. And then like the lads here tried already, myself and a guy called Martin, tried to get a little iOS thing going, which went nowhere. Then out of the blue, a company called NIT, who are a huge Indian training company, basically, multinational. They do training software. But they wanted to make their training more fun, turn into games.
Okay.
So basically, it's where Rich Morton's working now. He came to work for us after a couple of months of being open. So I'm still working with Richard to this day.
Oh, cool! Yeah. I remember him saying that he works on gamifying training and stuff.
It's training. Cool. It's the exact same work we've done before, but it's for training, and no one gets to see it because apart from a few guys in some shops in America or wherever. So
okay,
it's the exact same work, but no one sees it.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, how about for you, Tom? What are you up to?
I have kind of over the years worked at various games companies. I went back to teaching at university for a while. I'm teaching programming, but I am now the creative director at a UK company called the Multiplayer Guys. So back in game development full time.
Very cool. Anything that's been announced that you're working on?
I mean, we work on a lot of projects, but I won't advertise them here.
Okay. So. All right. And how about for you, Andy?
Yes, I went on to Stainless Games, worked on Jewels of the Planeswalkers, and then I moved over to Holland to start lecturing. And then I've moved across back to Britain. So I'm at York St John, teach the course lead on game design. So it's very specifically game design and not what a lot of courses do, where they try and integrate art and programming into the same course. So we do make game designers. So so I'm working with some of our ex-colleagues as fellow lecturers, and so we're kind of trying to make the new wave of designers, really.
That's amazing. That's so exciting. Awesome. Okay, so let's do so a lot of these were fan questions, but let's do a couple of follow-up fan questions. Neha, you can take it away. What do we have in the comments?
So there were a bunch, but may not be able to get through all of them, but okay. So obviously the editor came out in Chronicles. Have you guys ever played any of the custom levels that builders build nowadays?
Tom?
No, you. We always get asked this question. I always feel really guilty because we always get asked this question, and we always kind of go, I thought you had, Andy, didn't you?
I know I've used the new updated editor, which is beautiful, because I was thinking about just simple level design tools for using in class without getting them using Unreal or Unity. So I've used the new editor. It's amazing, and I've been sent some levels which I want to play. I genuinely do. It's just finding the hours, and it's really, I really do want to play them. It's the same as when we're working on Tomb Raider, and we used to get external DLC sent over. And we never played any of those either. I'm only seeing some of those now and thinking, all right, that looks interesting. So yeah, it's just time really, but no, we'd love to play some.
It's really interesting. It's fascinating seeing what people come up with. We just started doing a live stream series of the level editors to see what people are doing. It's incredible. So yeah. They're amazing work. Great work to that community.
Yeah.
Excellent. Yeah.
All right. Well, playing aside, have you maybe watched any of there's like a speed run community for Tomb Raider also. So have you seen any of these speed runs of Tomb Raider 4, which showcases the binoculars glitch, which basically allows you to skip levels?
Jerr watches that all the time.
Yeah, every night. I have no idea.
Yeah.
No idea.
So speedrunning is a good way to find out what bugs you had in the game.
Yeah.
Like any game, it's just like, all right, well, I didn't know I could do that. You can do that. It's amazing how quickly people can get through games with bugs.
On Tomb 3, I was reminding Jamie of this the other day, that you used to be able to do a side jump at the start of you start one of the levels sliding down this slope, and you can just do a side jump, and then you end all the Angkor Wat levels. It goes to the end of the level immediately. So so we obviously in those days you burnt gold masters, so you couldn't just kind of update it.
Day one patch it. Yeah. Understood.
So that's the thing. It's all these kind of bugs that are present, like the kind of whole corner glitching that you could basically get through the corners. We would spend hours with the kind of QA team trying to work our way through that and fix all of those bugs. But I just say I think with all of these questions, I mean, maybe I'm not speaking for the other two, but I think there was a period of time after Tomb Raider where I just could not look at Tomb Raider for years, really. It was like having just spent so much of my life, 24 hours a day practically, on Tomb Raider. So I didn't look at any Tomb Raider stuff for quite a few years afterwards.
Yeah. So. I can totally understand that. I hope now that time has passed, though, I hope that you guys are able to look back and appreciate and understand how much people love the work that you did and how much of an impact it had, and how fans are still making games based off of Tomb Raider 4 and 5 and all of that. So.
Yeah, it's really kind of humble. It's really humbling just to see how much how much people have enjoyed it and are still working on stuff.
Awesome.
I should say that after me and Tom tried to play the end of Tomb 3 the other day, that I've been put off ever looking at Tomb Raider again for another 10 years.
We were so bad. Oh man.
Give it a while. All right.
This one was for Jerr. Did you look at any reference material when you animated Lara?
No.
No. That's simple.
all of the awesome moves and stuff, all that just came from.
Well, no, I mean the stuff I was doing. I mean, Lara's walks and runs and the backflips and side flips and everything, that was all done by Toby originally. And it's like when I was doing stuff, it was more sort of like measurements, like the climbing stuff. It was more to do with like Well, I lie actually. That's all the in-game stuff. The cutscene stuff would be different then. But you might act stuff out and everything in the cutscenes. But I mean, even then the cutscenes, they were very low poly. They were not a lot really happened in them. A great deal. Mm-hmm. So the short answer is no, not a lot, to be honest.
Okay.
Look at some reference, but I mean, there's no filmed footage, and then we sort of try and rotoscope over it or anything like so.
Well, you did a great job, Joe.
Oh,
you did.
I'll be blushing next.
How difficult was the train level to create?
Oh my god.
You made a floor on top of the train?
Go on, Tom.
Yeah. Tom, sounds like you got thoughts on that.
Well, it's interesting because it was like a whole kind of bespoke, doing that whole thing of like having a level appear to go past. But what was, from my point of view, it was mainly because we suddenly had walls that were paper thin, that were just, like basically, and none of the AI was designed to work with walls like that. That you could just, so it was such a pain in the ass to get that to work at all in that very constrained space. And originally you could just see that the AI was walking through walls. You could see their arms through the wall. It's like, yeah, it was quite nightmarish. It was good fun though. Actually, I really I like those. By the time we finished those train levels, it was good fun.
Super cool level. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean that's because again, Uncharted, you know, you've got that level where effectively, you know, as a game designer, I've watched the train, and you can see that obviously they've got a massive O shape where the train goes around in a loop. So you know you've got constant landscape streaming past you, but you don't notice that it's the same landscape cycling around.
Interesting.
But you know, with our train level, I can't remember how we did it. I think was it just respawning a chunk of scenery ahead of the train each time? Or?
Yeah, it was effectively rolling. It was effectively rolling the level and spawning the objects in the level as you went, I think.
So that was an early temple run, wasn't it, that you were doing there?
Yeah, we should have monetized it. Yeah.
You also, because it was in the desert, the sand in the horizon was like a nice little fade out on either side, so that worked nicely too.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right.
Well, let's see. For Tomb Raider 4, I know you guys were talking about the game of Senate, for example. When you were making the game, did you consult any, like, I don't know if Egyptologist is actually a thing, or any type of experts during the game development?
Yeah. Go on, I was saying about Kieran, Tom. So yeah.
Okay, you've already said about Kieran.
No, I was saying last night we had a chat.
Yeah, when we were talking last night. Yeah, so basically, when I used to work at university, before I lectured at university before I went into to work at Core, and I had a friend there who was effectively as well as doing lots of stuff on AI and stuff like that, he was also an Egyptologist, so he had an incredible knowledge of kind of like Egyptian history, and he came and acted as kind of effectively like a story consultant and a kind of factual consultant on Last Revelation. A guy called Kieran O'Hara. I mean, it's funny because he's still quite big in academia. He kind of does his academic stuff, but apparently he gets more people coming up to him and saying, "I heard you wrote a story for Tomb Raider, one of the Tomb Raider games."
That's amazing. Yeah, so Kieran is the one who that early design doc that I found and I sent to you, Andy, with the ending where, so for context, there's this design document that we found recently. Well, it's not even a design document. It's like a very early like plot by Kieran, and it has Lara at the very end. The ending of the game was that she like takes, you know, the powers of Horus's armor and grows to like 40 feet tall and fights Set as like giant around the pyramids, and they fight like as giants. And that sounds amazing, but I can imagine that would have been like mind-numbingly difficult to make happen, especially because there were like all these NPCs running around, like regular sized ones on the ground and stuff. And
did you write that with Kieran when you were drunk, Tom?
Well, here's the interesting thing: is I don't know, but Kieran is a man who has never played a computer game in his life. He is not got no idea, which would explain why he might have 40-foot high Lara. But on the other hand, I can't imagine him doing that. That doesn't sound like him. But I don't know. Is the honest answer?
I think it was one of those things that, it sounds really cool on paper, but might have been a little difficult to execute.
The thing, my only interesting bit to add to that was at one stage, Von Croy was called Beeston Van Hire, which is a name of a van hire company in Nottingham, where he used to live.
That's amazing.
So that was the original working name for Von Croy, I think.
All right. I love that. What other questions do we have?
All right. So did any of you work on any of those like fun CGI advertisements for Lara's endorsements, and what kind of fun were you able to have with them?
The Lara's Aid.
Yeah, Lara's Aid, and there was like the Scutt commercials, the French car commercials, stuff like that.
No, we never knew anything about any of those. I mean, we would see them pop on. I mean, Jerr, you look like you might know something about.
I think Pete Barnard supplied all the stuff for them.
He supplied the stuff for U2, for the pop.
That's right. Yeah. So
U2 wanted this 700-foot high Lara behind them, like Kieran's 40-foot high Lara. But so Pete Barnard provided the models for U2, but the Lara's Head one, when she's getting chased by the dogs, I remember looking at that and thinking, God, I wish we could get like, such high quality models in, not offending the people making the models, but obviously they kind of, I think it looked like stop motion from my perspective, we knew nothing about any of those. They just pop up and we go. I mean, I remember sitting in the cinema once, and it wasn't the Tomb Raider film, and an advert came on for Lara's Head, and I was like nudging my wife, like going, who's done this?
Yeah, the Lara's Aid. Yeah, that's fantastic. surprised. I love that.
Let's see. So for this one, why was the AI made easier in Tomb Raider 4? So they said in Tomb Raider 3, enemies tried to shoot you while they were dying, and they and they even tried to sneak sometimes.
Yeah, we
So
like
is that an individual perception, or were they actually easier in 4?
I don't know. Like,
I think so. I think. Well, I think actually I'd forgotten about the one shooting you when they were dying. I loved that actually. We kind of put that in.
Call of Duty, Nick, that as well. You
yeah,
see?
I think. Yeah. I think it was partly because I think one of the things I think we saw in reviews from Tomb Raider 3 is that generally people thought it was too hard, and I think that partly that was because what happened was you get the play testers would play it over and over. I mean, he'd be playing it, like 16 hours a day every day, and obviously they've become absolute experts at playing Tomb Raider, and I think that the difficulty level gradually kind of crept up and up in Tomb Raider 3. So I think we felt the reviews seemed to be that on Tomb Raider 3 that it was possibly a bit too hard, so I think we might have just toned it down a little bit.
Yeah.
The next
I
one.
mean, I think that the difficulty from Tomb Raider 2, it just went down slightly each time until it became like actual like bearable for most players. I know we were talking about that during our Tomb Raider 1 and 2 interviews with Jamie about how he like became exactly that, just so much of an expert that, when people saw him coming down the hall to tell them that he had found more bugs or that he had broken their levels, they just like never wanted to see him again. Just be like, stop coming and telling me these things.
We used to kind of have a QA tester kind of assigned to each of us, or we'd sort of choose. But
Okay.
So I used to have Dave Ward was my tester. He's now successful in other areas of proper employment. But so he would come down, and we were actually fueled mostly by Lara's Aid or Red Bull, and it was usually about 4 or 5 in the morning. We'd be sitting, going through the level, and I'd be watching him. And I remember many times that he would almost be weeping to trying to get me to change like timings and doors shutting. And I mean, and he's an expert, so I mean, we made it so stupidly hard.
Yeah.
That like I said, me and Tom were playing the other night, and it was a disgrace. So we made it super hard, and I think Tomb 4 we tried to correct that.
Yeah. Okay. All right, Nate, how about we do like 1 or 2 more questions and then we'll wrap up. We have taken a lot of everybody's time, but I am so appreciative. This has been an awesome interview. So we'll wrap up with just a couple more.
sure. Okay. So let's see. I saw this a couple times. So was it more difficult to get the games working on PlayStation or PC back then?
Definitely PlayStation. I mean,
Yeah.
it's just so some of the things we had to do for that, like, I mean, sorry, I won't get too boring, but basically things like when Lara was loaded in, Lara's animations took up most of the memory. So when she was loaded into a level, basically we'd only load the animations that she could do in that level. Well, nowadays you wouldn't worry about any of this stuff, but it's like if there was no ropes on the level, it would dump out Lara's rope animations, and we couldn't basically get all of her animations into a level, so it would basically be selective, basically getting rid of bits, and so everything on the PlayStation was so hard to do.
Yeah, I can imagine.
So I think that was it. We always had to aim for that as the kind of like lowest common denominator, because it was kind of like technically the memory is so much less than the normal PC. But there was a guy, Richard Flowers, who did the PC conversions, and I'm sure he probably would disagree with me saying that the PC was the easier version. But basically, we did stuff for the PlayStation, and then we would get it to work on PC.
Okay.
Awesome.
Okay, then last question then. So you guys always try to innovate with your given resources, and they noted you guys did really well. If you had more time given by Eidos back then, would you have elevated the series engine and gameplay earlier? If yes, what would your approach have been?
That's a good question.
Yeah, I mean, we all wanted to. I mean, Gibby, was Gibby lead or was Chris lead? But our programmers used to consistently complain about the fact they wanted to upgrade the engine as soon as possible. We wanted to upgrade it on 3, basically, and we would do everything we could, but we didn't have time to upgrade the entire engine. And when we moved to PS2, obviously I wasn't on Angel of Darkness, but that brought its own problems, because then you've got, as a launch title or thereabouts, you suddenly got a massive scope, so you don't really know what the capabilities are. And then when I looked at the original design documents for I think we all looked at them for Tomb Angel of Darkness, the scope was enormous, and we, you know, it wasn't. We had a 30-man team, something for. Oh, sorry, you had a 30-man team for Angel of Darkness. Yeah.
Well, I think the same when a new console comes out. The first games that come out are always like, you know, people are not sure how to do it, what to do, and as time goes on, people get more used to it.
Mm-hmm.
But I think with Angel of Darkness, I mean, I think they did push it pretty well for Angel of Darkness. What it was it 3 or 4 years? I can't remember off the top of my head now.
Yeah.
It was a long time for it to come out. But for
15
first
years.
release, I thought they did an okay job, to be honest. I mean, it did feel rushed. I mean, we all felt rushed towards the end, even though it took an awful long time making it. It just seemed a bit rushed towards the end. It wasn't quite finished, you know. It was just brought out just because it had to be released by a certain date.
Yeah. Well, it was so ambitious, obviously. The scope was so much more ambitious and so on, which was incredibly impressive. And one of the reasons that it is still a fan favorite today, which today is what? Today's the 30th? Tomorrow means it's July 1st, which means it's technically Angel of Darkness month starting tomorrow, but we're going to kick it off on Monday with some really, really cool stuff. Fans have been waiting all year for Angel of Darkness. So we're very excited to showcase some fun stuff with that. So, all right, any final words you guys want to sign off with? It has been fantastic talking to all three of you. Tom, I'm so happy you were able to join us. Yeah, we've almost been talking for 2 hours. It doesn't feel like that. Thank you so much for all of your time. Any parting thoughts?
Just very quick, I'll say, Tom, it's been awesome seeing you. It's been 20 years since we actually seen you.
I know, yeah. It's been amazing, Joe. It's really nice to see you again.
Seriously.
I don't get this. I don't get this.
Oh, I met you once or twice. Don't worry about it. You know.
If I'm signing off, can I just say for the Angel of Darkness week, could you make Jerr wear the Lara costume?
Can we? Is this something you would do, Jerr?
Okay, I'll go one better. I'll do this that because I thought just in case it came up like. Is it finished like? But there you go. Here's a
there you go. Oh, awesome! Here's the shirt.
Oh, that's so awesome.
There we go.
Yeah, that's super cool. I love it.
So,
all right, well, that's close enough, right? All right. So like we said, we will get this interview up on YouTube, get subtitles, all that kind of stuff, so everybody can enjoy it. Might take like a week or so because this was a long interview. But thank you all so much for your time. Thank you for watching. Thank you for monitoring the questions, Neha, everyone. It has been
a pleasure.
awesome.
Thanks to the fans. Thank you. Thank you all.
Cheers. Thank you. It's been good.
See you soon.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Are we offline?